The UnDecaQuartiSextile is a 165-degree aspect in astrology that is sometimes mistakenly referred to as the quindecile. The UnDecaQuartiSextile is not only a powerful aspect to have in your natal chart, but it's also an incredibly powerful transit to go through. When it shows up in your natal chart, a lot of times this can actually be linked to an obsession, a motivation, a extreme level of ambition that can take you to the heights of your particular field or your passion or your interest. But experiencing it as a transit can be incredibly difficult, not always in your career path, but definitely in relationships. For example, if you are someone who had a, Venus in Virgo at 14 degrees and you saw that Mars was in Aqua, and it was approaching 0 degrees Pisces, you might be worried about the UnDecaQuartiSextile because you've been having some relationship problems while Mars was in Aqua. And you're wondering if the opposition, the 180 degree mark, in the center of Pisces, is going to be where that difficulty occurs, where a breakup happens, where a separation occurs. But a lot of times I feel that the UnDecaQuartiSextile does certain things that the opposition often gets blamed for. And because they are aspects that are only 15 degrees apart from each other on both sides, it makes sense that sometimes people will lump the situations they go through in life from the UnDecaQuartiSextile over onto the opposition and just use a very liberal wide orb while they do that. So for example, this person with Venus Virgo, maybe she is having these different fights with her boyfriend and their relationship is incredibly rocky, and the Mars reaches 0 degrees in Pisces. The two of them are going to have some type of, incredibly powerful fight or argument, something where both of them, or at least one of them, is incredibly hard-headed in exactly what they think is right and wrong here, exactly what they think is, the true dynamic this relationship should be in, and it feels like this would be the major clash. And so the two of them perhaps even, text to each other that they're breaking up. And then, of course, this woman with Venus in Virgo, let's just say she's an astrologer, she might be incredibly worried about what happens at the opposition. If this is what happened the moment Mars entered Pisces, what happens once I reach opposition? Are we going to break up for real? But the thing is, the UnDecaQuartiSextile often deals with separation, because when you are so motivated to do something or so motivated to have your relationship dynamic in a certain way, and this is the grand clash of evidence that that's not going to work, or it's going to, completely disrupt your reality, then that was a moment of authenticity and honesty to have, had that breakup in this example. So then the opposition comes around, and this is undoubtedly the point at which this male character comes back to the Venus Virgo and asks to get back together. And then this is a little bit confusing because she maybe had assumed that the opposition would be the point that they had had some major fight or breakup, whereas the opposition point itself ends up actually being more uneventful than a lot of times we expect it to be. Sometimes we expect the opposition to be this brutal challenge, when in reality this is the point at which compromise can be reached, or seeing the other person's point of view comes to a head. So of course, a few days after their discussion about that, we'll say in this particular case that she says no, then the next UnDecaQuartiSextile is deciding whether or not she's really going to stand by what it is that she said. If she's going to, hold firm to her guns that this relationship is unhealthy and that it can't continue, especially in the dynamic that it has been, and that any potential getting back together would only be after a long time of, maybe improvement on both of their parts, or perhaps she has natal UnDecaQuartiSextiles that, make her really want to focus obsessively on her art career. But regardless, this time frame of, basically 30 degrees that is directly surrounding the opposition point, I think is often missed. I think that a lot of times astrologers will be waiting for an opposition, dreading it, especially if it's anything Saturn related. And the UnDecaQuartiSextile that comes before will almost, be the true challenge that they really have to face. The thing that comes out and lunges forward, and it's absolutely awful to experience. and or something that, is really a moment of bravery for you to sort of stand by your guns and say, this is what I want and this is what I'm going to get. So, but then of course at that point they'll then say, well, I mean, the opposition's pretty soon, so maybe it's like a 10-degree orb or a 15-degree orb, and they get really, really liberal with it. So basically it's the moment the planet enters the other sign. But in a way, that's true if we connect the UnDecaQuartiSextile to the opposition, and we treat the UnDecaQuartiSextile as the action point that happens sort of, right before the philosophy point of the opposition, and then of course the action point of standing by what it is that you originally fought for in the first UnDecaQuartiSextile. So it's a really interesting aspect for us to get into. If you haven't checked already in your chart, look for any 165-degree UnDecaQuartiSextiles. They are definitely something that will blow your mind about certain things that you never really questioned, why it was you were so stuck on them, why it was, it felt like, things were so difficult, or difficult to get past in some way. And then of course in your relationship transits, there may have been many times where you've looked at upcoming oppositions or, even like, past squares that you've had and wondered why it was that those particular points weren't actually where things were the worst, and that it was some of the energy directly preceding and directly afterwards where you ended up seeing a lot of the action happen. So thank you guys for tuning in today. My name is Jax Atlantis, and if you guys want to see more of my Not So Minor Aspects series, I've got a playlist for it here on YouTube, as well as a playlist devoted to guided meditations and meditation music. I'm also on TikTok, Instagram, and of course you can always check out my website at jaxatlantis.com. I've got the Astrology Remote Viewing class that's coming out right now, the Remote Viewing Ultra course, which is currently in session, and the Astrologer Rising Course if you're interested in learning more about how to become an astrologer. So thank you guys for tuning in. I will see you all very soon.